What are your thoughts on the WNBA allowing trans women?
Allow trans women wherever they want to go.
Okay. I have my friend Ruby over here. She just started transitioning about 3 weeks ago with estrogen. She wants to enter the WNBA draft in 2027. You think she can do it?
I thought I was a man my entire life, but after further review, strong look at my personal preferences, it would appear that I am indeed sometimes identifying as a transgender woman.
Are you a trans woman?
Well, I want to make this very clear.
Are you a trans woman?
Listen, Section 13, right? Article 13, Section 1 says if you identify as a woman, then you're allowed to play.
So you are identifying as a woman tonight?
I identify as a woman.
Now we live in a country where a man could say, now I'm a woman. Mm-hmm. Now I'm a woman. And we will call you by your name as a woman. But that doesn't mean that a doctor ain't gonna call you until you need a prostate examination.
The WNBA trans debate has reached new levels of absurdity, and now the league is literally removing people from games simply for wearing a shirt with the dictionary definition of a woman. And now DL Hughley is weighing in with his take on all this, and he's saying you can identify however you want, but biology doesn't lie. Meanwhile, trans activists are now calling on the WNBA to sign trans French player Julie Tétart. Tétart came out as trans in 2021, is 6'3", and is averaging 20 rebounds per game. At the same time, these same trans activists are attacking Sophie Cunningham and calling her transphobic simply because she said she wants to protect women's and girls' sports.
If Sophie Cunningham has no haters, I am dead. Sophie Cunningham is a player in the WNBA, and she is transphobic. A few days ago, ESPN posted an interview that they did with Sophie Cunningham in which she talks about protecting women's sports. And here is an excerpt from the interview in which she says, "I love trans." I think if you were not transphobic, that sentence would say, "I love trans people." What does that mean?
All right, let's talk about Sophie Cunningham's crime. Because if you've been following the story from mainstream media, you'd think she went on some hate-filled rant, but that's not what happened. Here is what Sophie actually said. In a July 2026 ESPN interview, she was asked about her views on trans women playing in the WNBA, and here's exactly what came out of her mouth. "I got a lot of negative feedback about me hating trans, and I'm like, I never once said that. I think that I am here to extend love, but I also think with that love is truth, being honest. And I want to protect young girls in a locker room or young girls in sport who shouldn't have to go against biological men." So she literally never said anything hateful towards trans women. And yet trans activists launched this vicious campaign against her, sending her death threats, explicit messages, and even stalking her in real life. She even had to cancel plans to buy a home in Florida after her location was discovered by a stalker. However, Sophie didn't back down. In fact, she doubled down on her take and said she will keep advocating for the safety of women and girls.
On that same vein, in that story with ESPN, you talked about wanting to protect young girls who shouldn't have to go against biological men. Just can you expand your viewpoint on that?
I mean, I think I said what I said. I think it's kind of common sense. And I think I'll always believe in that. I think it's really important to protect children, and that's little girls who are also involved in that category. And so I stand on what I said, and I always believe that.
And what's crazy is that the majority of people agree with Sophie, but those who are in the public eye are too scared to say anything. But not DL Hughley. Here's what he had to say about this whole debate about men who want to identify as women.
Now we live in a country where a man could say, now I'm a woman. Mm-hmm. Now I'm a woman. And we will call you by your name as a woman. But that doesn't mean that a doctor ain't gonna call you until you need a prostate examination. You can wear a sundress when you go. Yeah. But you still getting the same thing I'm getting. So happy anniversary, I guess. I don't know. And now you can say you're a thing and you're that.
Yeah.
And you have to for now. I'm a white man trapped in this black man's body.
Yeah.
My name is Chad.
Yeah.
Now that ain't gonna work good for the police. Wait, I'm a white man. Well, both of y'all get out.
Now, as for basketball players, Sophie Cunningham received support from only a handful of them. One of them was Kyle Kuzma, who called out people for attacking Sophie and wrote, "What was transphobic about her comment? She said she wants to protect women and young girls in sports and that they should not play against biological men. Yeah, let's go ahead and discipline her." So even Kuzma can see it. It's not rocket science, it's common sense. But then you have Enes Kanter and Royce White, and this is where this whole thing goes off the rails.
Now, first thing you need to keep in mind
mind is that Article 13 of the WNBA's own rulebook states, and I quote, "Only players who are women are eligible to play in the WNBA." Seems straightforward, right? But here's the messed up part. They never define what they mean by woman. This rulebook has over 400 pages, and it defines every single word, from rookie to veteran to player contract to regular season. Every single term you can possibly imagine is defined in excruciating legal detail, except one, the word woman. So the league has an eligibility rule that says only women can play, but they refuse to define what a woman is. And this brings me to Enes Kanter and Royce White. Earlier this month, Enes and Royce declared themselves eligible for the 2027 WNBA draft, stating they now identify as a woman. Enes argued that since the WNBA's rulebook only states that players who are women are eligible, and the league lacks a specific policy on transgender athletes, he was simply following the rules.
Are you a trans woman?
Well, I want to make this very clear.
Are you a
statement.
trans woman?
Listen, Section 13, right? Article 13, Section 1 says if you identify as a woman, then you're allowed to play.
So you are identifying as woman tonight?
I identify as a woman. Sure, yes.
Okay.
So I can play.
But they're never going to let you play.
Why not? I mean, that's the rule. That's the rule that they put, and I'm just following the rules. If they ever come out and say, "Okay, we are changing the rules," I respect their decision. I will, follow the rules. But right now, if you identify as a woman, you're allowed to play, and I am identifying as a woman, and I am actually allowed to play.
And then Royce White took the trolling even further and said he identifies as sometimes identifying as a woman for the purpose of basketball.
I'm just having a blast in my feminine era. I never thought that I was a woman. I've always trusted the science, and I thought I was a man my entire life. But after further review, strong look at my personal preferences, it would appear that I am indeed sometimes identifying as a transgender woman, and I think it's only fair I get a chance to play with some of my queens here in the twilight of my career, my athletic prime. It's just astounding that the WNBA can't define the W in the name. And I think we're going through a very necessary conversation about who's actually eligible to play in some of these professional sports leagues, I guess on both sides of the gender spectrum. My goal is to help elevate the WNBA. I think the ticket prices and the attendance will soar. I think the audience, the live audience will increase. And I think ultimately it's good for the game. It's going to help evolve the game.
Royce even started wearing a wig, and he really got into this character. He even managed to convince CNN to interview him, but then they canceled last minute.
Set to do an interview with CNN at 5 p.m. She messaged me and said, "We're canceling the interview. We have other news." And I just, for the life of me, they're not giving black women a voice.
Now, are Enes and Royce trolling and rage baiting? Absolutely. Is it a bit immature? Probably so. But at the same time, they really managed to expose the hypocrisy of WBNA. In fact, the WNBA has now issued a statement saying Enes and Royce are not eligible for the 2027 draft because their declarations are just publicity stunts. The statement said the league refuses to give oxygen to efforts designed to mock the league or use this topic to demean or marginalize others. So the league is saying these two men who say they identify as women do not satisfy the eligibility standard. So why won't they explain what that standard is? Does the WNBA define woman based on biology? If so, they should make that clear. On the other hand, if they believe just saying you identify as a woman is enough, then they should put that in their rule book, but they won't, because saying anything would force them to pick a side, and picking a side would expose the hypocrisy. And things are just getting more ridiculous every day, to the point where this whole trans issue has completely hijacked the conversation about women's basketball. In case you missed it, there was recently another incident tied to this debate when Enes Kanter showed up courtside at a Chicago Sky versus Indiana Fever game. He was sitting along the baseline wearing a black t-shirt that read, "Woman, noun, adult human female." So just a simple dictionary definition. But then Sky guard Natasha Cloud, who is very pro-trans and has been one of the loudest voices against Sophie Cunningham, confronted Enes and started yelling and pointing at him during a timeout. Enes then stood up with his arms out, took one step toward the court, and security immediately swooped in and removed him from the arena. So after the game, Enes took to X and wrote, "I just got kicked out of a WNBA game for supporting women. Let that sink in, America." As for the WNBA's response, they obviously took Natasha Cloud's side, and Sky coach Tyler Marsh said Natasha is someone who protects our team and protects people that need to be protected. But protect them from what? Natasha is the one who instigated that incident. She rushed towards Enes Kanter, cussing him out and needing to be held back by her teammates. Meanwhile, Enes was just wearing a shirt. Charlemagne the God called him out on The Breakfast Show and said Kanter doesn't actually care about protecting women. He just wants to be the main character.
You've lost the plot, all right? He says he's doing all of this because he wants to protect women. Yeah, so you go into a space built around women, a league played by women, a workplace where women are doing their jobs, and you create a situation where one of the women playing basketball ends up arguing with you. And now the headline coming out of the game isn't about the women's basketball game, it's about you, Enes Kanter, freedom. Okay, how did protecting women become making yourself the main character in women's spaces?
Now look, you can agree with Charlemagne about Enes and still have common sense to acknowledge that the WNBA is being extremely hypocritical about this whole thing. And more importantly, they're the ones who keep failing women and girls. And then there's the whole science angle. The evidence from evolutionary biology shows that the physical differences between males and females are not just superficial. And this is not a matter of social construct. It's a fundamental biological principle that applies across species. First of all, the physical advantages males develop are well documented in the scientific literature. Male puberty, which is driven by testosterone, causes lasting increases in muscle mass, strength, speed, and endurance. And these are major differences that affect athletic performance. This is why the performance gap between elite males and females is consistent. Studies have found that women's world record times are approximately 10% slower than men's records across a wide range of sports. For example, sprinter Allison Felix, one of the most decorated female athletes in history, had a lifetime best 400-meter time that was surpassed by nearly 300 high school boys in 2018. Now, something that gets brought up a lot by trans activists is hormone therapy. They claim trans women who received hormone therapy no longer have those male physical advantages, but that's simply not what the current science says. Studies show that some effects of male puberty, such as bone size and configuration, cannot be reversed once they have developed. Also, increases in lung size and heart size are not completely reversed by testosterone suppression.
Testosterone suppression can reduce muscle mass and strength to some degree, but the evidence suggests that the reduction does not eliminate the advantage. Muscle size and strength in trans women remain larger than would be expected in a typical female, even when matched for body height or mass. Now let me show you what this means on a real-life example. When Leah Thomas was a male swimmer named William Thomas, he ranked 554th in the men's 200-yard freestyle. But after transitioning and competing as a woman, Leah tied for 5th place in the women's NCAA championship, and her 500-yard freestyle ranking moved from 65th in men's competition to a national title in women's competition. So Leah went through hormone therapy and testosterone suppression, but the reduction in testosterone did not remove her biological advantage. Again, this is just science, and it has nothing to do with how someone chooses to identify. But here we are now, and the WNBA still refuses to define what a woman is. When they were asked what criteria they use to determine that Enes Kanter and Royce White are ineligible, they refused to answer. When they were asked if the league will publish written guidance before the draft, again, no response. But fans have had enough of this mess, and now they're saying everyone should boycott the WNBA and stop watching altogether until they either get rid of the W in their name or say clearly what that W stands for. But I want to know what you think about this whole controversy. Are you taking sides, or are you confused about why this is even a debate? How do you feel about Enes Kanter and Royce White's antics? And what about DL Hughley's comments on men who identify as women? Drop all your takes down below in the comments section, and I'll catch you in the next one.